The travel brochure lay between us on the coffee table like evidence at a trial. Amalfi Coast, Cinque Terre, Rome. 3 weeks of Italian dreams printed on glossy paper, now creased from where I'd folded and unfolded it a dozen times. You're not seriously still thinking about this? Marcus, Vanessa said, not looking up from her phone. Her thumbs moved rapidly across the screen, probably responding to one of the countless messages that seemed more important than our conversation these days. I am seriously thinking about it, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I've been saving for 2 years. We talked about this being our trip. She finally looked up, her expression somewhere between amused and annoyed. We talked about a lot of things 2 years ago. People change. I've changed. She set her phone down with deliberate slowness. Look, Marcus, you're a great guy, really. But I'm 27 years old. I'm not ready to settle. The word hung in the air between us, settle. As if our 3-year relationship, the apartment we shared, the life we'd built together was somehow less than what she deserved. Settle? I repeated. Is that what you think this is? Vanessa sighed, tucking a strand of her highlighted hair behind her ear. I think we both know what this is. You want the whole package, the trip, the ring I know you've been looking at, the house in the suburbs, kids, the whole traditional life. And she paused, searching for words. I want to keep my options open. Experience life. See what else is out there. What else is out there? My voice came out sharper than intended. Vanessa, we've been together for 3 years. If you don't know by now, exactly, she interrupted. 3 years. And yeah, it's been good. But good isn't enough for me. I see my friends traveling the world, meeting new people, living their best lives. Meanwhile, I'm supposed to commit to Italian cathedrals and pasta dinners like some old married couple. I stared at her, really seeing her for perhaps the first time in months. The distance between us had been growing, I realized, like a crack in a foundation that you don't notice until the whole structure shifts. Her late nights out, the way she'd pull away when I reached for her hand in public, the constant scrolling through social media, comparing our life to everyone else's highlight reel. So what are you saying? I asked quietly. She picked up her phone again, a tell I'd learned to recognize. It meant she was about to say something she didn't want to deal with the fallout from. I'm saying I'm not going to Italy with you. I'm saying I need space to figure out what I really want. And I'm saying that maybe we should take a break. A break. The words felt like stones in my mouth. Don't be so dramatic, she said, standing up and grabbing her designer purse, the one I'd saved up 3 months to buy her for Christmas. It's not like I'm breaking up with you. I just need time to explore who I am without being tied down. You can do the same. Go on your little trip. Have your adventure. And when you get back, we can see where we are. My little trip, I echoed. You know what I mean. She was already at the door. I'm staying at Jen's tonight. We'll talk more later, okay? Don't wait up. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow felt louder than a slam would have been. I sat there for a long time, staring at the travel brochure. The sunset over the Mediterranean mocked me from the cover. 3 weeks in Italy. Non-refundable deposits. A trip planned for 2, my phone buzzed. A message from my best friend Ryan. Did you do it yet? Did you show her the brochure? I typed back. Yeah, she's not coming. 3 dots appeared immediately, then. So what are you going to do? I looked at the brochure again. At the beaches and the cliffside villages. At the life I'd imagined sharing with someone who apparently saw me as an anchor rather than a partner. My fingers moved across the keyboard. I'm going anyway. 3 weeks later, I stood in JFK Airport with a single backpack and a carry-on suitcase, feeling simultaneously liberated and terrified. Around me, couples held hands, families herded excited children, and groups of friends laughed over shared anticipation. I was alone. Vanessa had texted twice since our conversation. Once to ask if I could drop off her mail at Jen's apartment. Once to remind me where we kept the spare keys in case anything happened while I was away. Not a single word about us. Not one question about whether I was actually going through with the trip. Ryan had driven me to the airport, his final words still echoing in my head. Best decision you could make, man. Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find yourself. I know that sounds like some Instagram bullshit, but it's true. Now, waiting at the gate for my flight to Rome, I watched a couple in their 60s settle into seats across from me. The woman pulled out a guidebook and her husband leaned over, pointing at something on the page. They smiled at each other with the ease of people who'd been making each other smile for decades. Was that settling? I wondered. Or was that winning? My phone buzzed. For a moment, my heart jumped. Maybe Vanessa had finally realized what she was throwing away. But it was just a notification from Instagram. Out of curiosity, I opened it. Vanessa had posted a photo 20 minutes ago. Her and 3 friends at some rooftop bar, cocktails raised, caption reading, "To freedom and new adventures. Living my best life, no regrets." I stared at the image. She was wearing the dress I'd always loved, the red one. Her smile was radiant. She looked happy. Happier maybe than she'd looked in months with me. First time in Italy, I looked up to find an elderly man settling into the seat next to me. He had kind eyes and wore a worn leather jacket that had probably seen more of the world than most people ever would. "That obvious?" I managed to smile. "You've got that look," he chuckled. "Excited and terrified in equal measure. Don't worry, Italy will cure you of both. It'll replace them with wonder and probably a few extra pounds from all the pasta." Despite everything, I laughed. "You've been before?" 43 times, he said proudly. "My wife and I went for our honeymoon in 1982. Fell in love with the place almost as much as we'd fallen in love with each other. We went back every year." His expression softened. "I lost her 2 years ago. But I still go. Can't seem to stay away." "I'm sorry," I said quietly. He shook his head. "Don't be. We had 47 years together. 43 trips to Italy. More memories than most people make in 2 lifetimes. The only thing I'm sorry about is that we didn't go more often when we had the chance. We kept saying next year, or when things settle down at work, or when the kids are older. Wasted time, all of it." I thought about Vanessa's words. About not settling. About keeping options open. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "How did you know? That she was the one, I mean. That you should commit to building a life with her instead of, I don't know, seeing what else was out there?" The old man studied me for a moment. Running from something or toward something? "Maybe a bit of both," I admitted. He nodded slowly. "Here's what I learned. The grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. My wife and I, we had our share of troubles. There were women at work, men in her office. Opportunities if we'd wanted them. But we didn't want them because we were too busy building something together. Every trip to Italy we discovered something new. Not just about the country, but about each other, about us. What if," I hesitated, "what if the person you're with doesn't want to build that? What if they want to keep their options open?" His expression grew somber. "Then they're not ready for what real love is. Real love isn't about keeping your options open. It's about closing all the doors except one and walking through it together. It's a choice you make every single day." The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom announcing first-class boarding. The old man stood, gripping his worn leather carry-on. "You going to be all right, son?" I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yeah, I think I am." "Good. And here's some free advice. Don't spend your whole trip thinking about whoever you left behind. Italy has a way of showing you what you didn't know you were looking for. Be open to it." As I boarded the plane hours later, settling into my window seat on the half-empty flight, I made myself a promise. For the next 3 weeks, I wouldn't check Vanessa's social media. I wouldn't wait for texts that probably wouldn't come. I would water my own grass even if I was the only one standing on it. Below, New York's lights began to fade as we climbed into the night sky. Ahead, somewhere over the Atlantic, Italy was waiting. And maybe, just maybe, so was the person I was supposed to become. The Amalfi Coast was everything the brochures promised and nothing I expected. Not because it wasn't beautiful, it was stunning in a way that made my chest ache. But because I'd imagined sharing every sunset, every cliffside view, every perfect moment with someone. Instead, I was collecting them alone, like seashells with no one to show them to. I'd been in Italy for 5 days when I found the small beach in Positano. It was early morning, that golden hour when the fishing boats were heading out and most tourists were still sleeping off the previous night's limoncello. I'd walked down 300 steps carved into the cliff face, my legs burning, drawn by the promise of solitude and the sound of waves. That's when I saw her. She sat on the rocks at the far end of the beach, a large sketch pad balanced on her knees, completely absorbed in her work. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore a simple white linen shirt over faded jeans rolled to her calves. There was something magnetic about her stillness, the way she seemed to exist in perfect harmony with the landscape she was capturing. I didn't want to intrude, so I found a spot on the opposite end of the beach and pulled out my phone, not to check messages, but to take photos of the water. I'd gotten good at that over the past few days, documenting moments I couldn't share. The light's better from over here. I looked up to find her standing a few feet away, shading her eyes as she looked at me. She had an accent I couldn't quite place, European definitely, but not Italian. "Sorry," I said. She gestured to where I'd been pointing my phone. "The rock formation you're photographing. The light hits it better from this angle. Here." She walked closer and positioned herself next to me, pointing. "See? The way the sun catches the minerals in the stone. And you get the reflection in the water too." She was right. From her suggested angle, the whole scene transformed. The rocks glowed amber and gold, their mirror image rippling in the crystalline water. "Thanks," I said, taking the shot. "You're an artist?" She laughed, a warm sound that seemed to belong to this place. "I try to be. Mostly I make sketches that remind me I should have paid more attention in art school, but I keep trying." She extended her hand. "I'm Elena. Marcus." Her handshake was firm, confident. "You're American," she observed. "On vacation?" "Something like that. You?" "Romanian, actually. But I live in Florence now. I'm doing a series on coastal light, trying to capture how it changes throughout the day in different locations. It's probably a pretentious project, but it gives me an excuse to sit on beautiful beaches and call it work." I found myself smiling, really smiling, for the first time since landing in Italy. "That doesn't sound pretentious. That sounds perfect." She studied me for a moment, her head tilted slightly. "You're traveling alone." It wasn't a question. "How did you know?" "Solo travelers have a different energy. We notice things couples miss because they're too busy experiencing things together. Also, you've been here for 20 minutes and haven't taken a single selfie or looked around for someone to share the view with." "Dead giveaway." She paused. "Recent breakup?" I must have flinched because she quickly added, "Sorry, artist's curse. I observe too much, filter too little. You don't have to answer that." "No, it's okay," I heard myself say, kind of. My girlfriend, ex-girlfriend I guess, decided she wasn't ready to settle. This trip was supposed to be for both of us. Elena nodded slowly. "But you came anyway." "But I came anyway." "Good," she said firmly. "That shows strength. Most people would have canceled, stayed home, felt sorry for themselves. You chose to be here. That matters." We talked for an hour on that beach, and it felt like minutes. Elena told me about growing up in Bucharest, about moving to Italy to study art history and never leaving, about her theory that you could understand a culture's soul through its relationship with light. I told her about New York, about architecture, my actual job designing buildings, and about how I'd never realized how much of my life I'd been planning around someone else's maybe. "You know what I think?" Elena said, packing up her sketching supplies as the beach started to fill with tourists. "I think the universe was protecting you, because the person who's meant for you would never make you feel like choosing them was settling. They'd make you feel like you'd won the lottery." "Is that experience talking or optimism?" I asked. She grinned. "Both. I married the wrong person at 23 because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Divorced at 25. Best decision I ever made after the worst decision I ever made. Now I'm 31 and exactly where I'm supposed to be, which is sketching on beaches, which is choosing myself first and being open to what comes after." She shouldered her bag. "I'm here for 3 more days, capturing the morning and evening light. If you're around tomorrow, same time, I'll show you the best coffee spot in Positano. The tourists haven't found it yet." "I'd like that," I said, meaning it. As I watched her climb the steps back toward the village, something shifted in my chest. It wasn't attraction, or not just attraction. It was recognition. Elena moved through the world with an assurance I'd lost somewhere along the way. She'd chosen herself, built a life that fit her, and she wasn't apologizing for it. That night I finally checked my phone. 2 texts from Vanessa. "Hope you're having fun, and my mom asked about you." What should I tell her? I stared at the messages for a long time. Then I typed, "Tell her I'm finding exactly what I didn't know I was looking for." I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one. But for the first time since the airport, I didn't care. Tomorrow, there would be coffee with Elena, and whatever came after, that, the waves outside my hotel window whispered, promises I was finally ready to hear. The package arrived on a Tuesday morning at my office in Manhattan. Inside was a small canvas, maybe 8 by 10 inches, carefully wrapped in brown paper. I knew what it was before I even opened it. Elena had told me she'd send something once she finished the series. The painting captured that first morning on the Positano beach, the amber rocks, the golden light on the water, the exact angle she'd shown me. But in the corner, barely visible, were 2 figures, one sitting with a sketchpad, one standing with a phone learning to see. The note tucked inside read, "For Marcus, who taught me that sometimes the best art happens when we're not looking for it. The exhibition opens next month in Florence. You have a standing invitation." I'd been back in New York for 2 months, but those 3 weeks in Italy felt simultaneously like a dream, and the most real thing that had ever happened to me. Elena and I had spent nearly every day together after that first morning. She'd shown me her Italy, not the tourist version, but the one locals knew. Small trattorias where the owner's grandmother still made pasta by hand. Hidden viewpoints where you could watch the sun set over the Mediterranean without another soul in sight. Churches so old the stones seemed to hold centuries of prayers. But more than that, she'd shown me what it looked like to live deliberately. Elena worked as a freelance art conservator, choosing projects that interested her rather than ones that paid the most. She lived in a tiny apartment in Florence's Oltrarno district, with a view of the Arno River. She traveled light, committed deeply, and laughed easily. We'd exchanged numbers, promised to stay in touch. And we had. Texts throughout the day, video calls when our schedules aligned. But we'd both been careful not to name what was growing between us. The geography alone made it complicated. Her life was in Florence, mine in New York. We were still learning who we were separately. Rushing into something felt like repeating old patterns. But God, I missed her. "You're doing that thing again." I looked up to find Ryan standing in my office doorway grinning. "What thing?" "That dreamy thing where you stare into space and I know you're thinking about the Italian artist." "Dude, just buy the plane ticket already." "It's not that simple," I protested, but my heart wasn't in it. "Why not? You're miserable here. You smile every time your phone buzzes with her messages, and you've already told me at least 5 times that Florence has amazing architecture. You're an architect, Marcus. You could work from anywhere." He wasn't wrong. I'd been thinking about it more and more. The firm had remote positions. I had savings. "And Elena? What about Vanessa?" I said quietly. Ryan's expression hardened. "What about her?" "You guys broke up 3 months ago. She made it clear she wanted freedom. Last I heard, she's dating some finance bro she met at that rooftop bar." "I know. I trailed off, unsure how to explain the strange loyalty I still felt to something that no longer existed. "You're afraid," Ryan said, not unkindly. "You're afraid of making another mistake. Of choosing wrong again. But Marcus, let me ask you something. When you were with Vanessa, did you ever feel the way you do when you talk about Elena?" I didn't have to think about it. "No. Then stop making it complicated. Elena's exhibition opens in a month? Be there." After Ryan left, I sat staring at the painting. Elena had captured something I hadn't seen in the moment. How perfectly we'd fit into that landscape. How natural it looked to be standing there together. My phone buzzed. "Elena, did you get my package?" "Be honest about the painting." "I won't be offended if you think it's terrible." I smiled and typed back, "It's perfect." Every detail. 3 dots appeared then. "Even the part where I painted you looking like you just discovered the secret of the universe?" "Especially that part. I think maybe I had." A longer pause this time. Then, "Marcus, I need to tell you something. I don't expect anything, but I'd regret not saying it. These past few months, getting to know you, really know you, it's been..." God, this sounds so cliché, but you feel like home, like the person I didn't know I was waiting to meet. My heart hammered against my ribs. I started typing, deleted it, started again. "I'm coming to Florence for your exhibition, and I'm not coming as a friend." "Then what are you coming as?" "As someone who's done settling for almost. As someone who's ready to choose the person who chose him back." "That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me," she typed. "And I once dated an Italian poet." I laughed out loud in my empty office. I'll try not to let that pressure get to me. "One more thing, Marcus. When you come, consider staying a while. Florence is beautiful in winter. And I know a conservator who needs an architectural consultant for a project at the Uffizi. Is that an official job offer? It's an official, I want to see where this goes without an ocean between us offer. I looked around my office, the awards on the wall, the blueprints for buildings that looked like every other building in Manhattan, the life I'd built because it seemed like what I was supposed to do. Then I looked at Elena's painting. At the light she'd captured, at the possibility of choosing something because it made me feel alive rather than because it made sense on paper. I'll need to give notice, wrap up some projects, maybe 6 weeks. I'll be counting the days. That night I finally packed up the last of Vanessa's things that she'd never bothered to collect. A toothbrush, some hair products, a sweater she'd left on my couch. As I boxed them up, I found myself grateful rather than bitter. If she hadn't refused to come to Italy, I never would have gone alone. Never would have found that beach. Never would have met the woman who saw me not as a backup plan or a safe choice, but as someone worth choosing on purpose. I texted Vanessa, I have the rest of your stuff packed up. Let me know when you want to pick it up. Also, thank you for being honest about what you wanted. It freed me to find what I needed. Her response came an hour later. That's big of you. Glad you're moving on. We weren't right for each other anyway. She was right. We weren't, but Elena and I might be. And for the first time in years, I was ready to find out. 6 weeks later, I stood in front of a gallery wall in Florence looking at my own face. Elena had titled the piece L'Ora d'Oro, the Golden Hour. It was the centerpiece of her exhibition, surrounded by dozens of other light studies from various coastal locations. But this one was different. You could feel it. The other paintings were technically brilliant but emotionally neutral. This one radiated something else entirely. It's my favorite, a voice said beside me. I turned to find an Italian woman in her 70s, elegant in the way only Italian women of a certain age can be. There's a story in this one. In the others, she captured light. In this one, she captured change. Metamorphosi. Transformation, I translated softly. Yes. Two people becoming something new. You can see it in the brushstrokes. She studied me carefully. You're him. The American. She's talked about you. Elena has? The woman smiled. Not in words, dear. But an old woman knows when her granddaughter is in love. She paints differently. She laughs more easily. She stops guarding her heart so carefully. She patted my arm. I'm Nonna Beatrice. Elena's been taking care of my building's frescoes for 3 years. She should be here soon. She went to pick up more wine. My stomach flipped. I'd arrived early, wanting to see the exhibition before the official opening. Before I had to confront the reality of what I was doing. Moving across the ocean for a relationship that had existed mostly in texts and video calls. You're nervous, Nonna Beatrice observed. Don't be. The heart knows what it wants. The head just takes longer to admit it. How did you know with your husband? I asked. That it was right? Her eyes grew misty. He made me want to be brave. Before Giuseppe, I was so careful, so afraid of making mistakes. He showed me that the biggest mistake is not living fully. We had 53 years together before I lost him. Not one day wasted. Marcus, I turned. Elena stood in the gallery doorway, 2 bottles of wine in her arms, looking exactly like she did in my memory, but somehow more real. Her hair was down, falling in waves around her shoulders. She wore a simple black dress and boots, and her eyes, those eyes that saw everything, were wide with something between joy and disbelief. You came early, she said, setting down the wine. I couldn't wait, I admitted. We stood there, 3 feet apart, the entire gallery between us and nothing between us at all. Then she closed the distance and I pulled her into my arms, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. She smelled like paint and jasmine and possibility. It's a beautiful painting, I murmured into her hair. It's an honest painting, she corrected, pulling back to look at me. That's the moment I knew. Knew what? That I was going to fall in love with you. Maybe already had. Before I could respond, people started arriving for the opening. Art critics, collectors, friends. The gallery filled with conversation and laughter. But Elena kept her hand in mine, anchoring me to her side as she introduced me to her world. This is Marcus, she'd say. He's the reason I could finally finish this series. Hours later, after the last guests had filtered out and we'd helped Nonna Beatrice lock up the gallery, Elena and I walked along the Arno River. The Ponte Vecchio glowed in the distance, its lights reflecting off the dark water. I have something to tell you, I said, my heart pounding. She stopped walking, turned to face me. Okay. I gave notice at my firm. I've signed a 6-month contract to consult on the Uffizi project. After that, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to New York. Maybe I'll stay. Maybe I'll end up somewhere else entirely. Elena nodded slowly. That's a big change. A lot of uncertainty. I'm terrified, I admitted. I'm leaving everything I know for something that might not work out. 6 months ago, that would have paralyzed me. But now, I took her hands. Now I think I understand what you meant on that beach. About choosing yourself first and being open to what comes after. I'm choosing this, you, us, whatever that becomes. Her smile was radiant. Marcus Reeves, are you saying you're finally ready to settle? I laughed, remembering Vanessa's words that had once stung so deeply. No, I'm saying I'm ready to build. There's a difference. She kissed me then. There on the bridge with the Arno flowing beneath us and centuries of history watching over us. It tasted like coming home to a place I'd never been. By the way, she said when we pulled apart, 3 paintings sold tonight, including yours. It's not my painting, I protested, it's ours. And the buyer wants to remain anonymous, but they paid triple the asking price. Something about it being a perfect capture of the moment everything changes. She grinned. So now I can afford to be picky about projects for a while. Maybe travel more. Maybe visit New York occasionally. I'd like that. We walked back to her apartment in Oltrarno, through narrow streets that had existed for centuries before us, and would exist for centuries after. Tomorrow I'd start the complicated process of building a life in a foreign country. I'd navigate visa paperwork and language barriers and the 1,000 small adjustments of choosing something uncertain over something safe. But tonight, I just walked hand in hand with Elena through her city, now becoming our city, and felt more settled than I ever had in all my careful planning. My phone buzzed, an Instagram notification. Vanessa had posted a selfie at some new bar with a new guy, caption reading, "Finally found someone who matches my energy. Living my best life DP are no compromises." I showed it to Elena, who studied it thoughtfully. She looks happy. She does, I agreed. And I meant it, because her happiness wasn't my responsibility anymore. She'd chosen freedom. I'd chosen commitment, and somehow, we'd both gotten exactly what we needed. Elena glanced at the photo again, then at me. Do you regret any of it? The time you spent with her? No, I said honestly. If she hadn't left, I never would have found you. That's very evolved of you, or very grateful. We reached her building, a 300-year-old structure with frescoes Beatrice had hired Elena to restore. As we climbed the stairs to her apartment, Elena said, I need to tell you something. Nonna Beatrice is selling this building, retiring to stay with her daughter in Siena. That's sad. These frescoes are beautiful. They are. And she's offered me first right of purchase. The whole building. 4 apartments, 2 of them currently rented. It's a lot of responsibility. A huge commitment. She stopped at her door, key in hand. I'm thinking about doing it. Elena, that's incredible, is it? Or is it terrifying? I'd be tied to this place. Less freedom to travel. More responsibilities. She looked at me carefully. Would that bother you? If I became less spontaneous? I pulled her close. Building something doesn't mean losing your freedom. It means choosing what you're free to become. At least that's what a very wise artist once taught me. She unlocked the door but paused before pushing it open. One more thing. There's an empty apartment on the 2nd floor. Needs work, but it has incredible light. Perfect for a home office. Just saying. Elena, I'm not asking you to decide now. We have time. 6 months at least. Maybe more. Maybe forever, she smiled. I'm just planting seeds, seeing what grows. Inside her apartment, with its view of the Arno and its walls full of her art, we opened a bottle of wine and toasted to uncertain futures and brave choices, to paintings that tell the truth and trips taken solo that lead you to exactly where you're supposed to be. 3 months later, I'd receive a text from Ryan, a screenshot of Vanessa's latest Instagram post. She was engaged to the finance guy. The photo showed them at some exclusive restaurant, her hand prominently displayed with an enormous diamond ring. The caption, when you know you know. Engaged on I so happy, Ryan's message. You dodging a bullet looks like this. I'd show it to Elena, who'd be in the middle of negotiating the building purchase. She'd glance at it, then back at her paperwork. Good for her. She found what she was looking for. Did she? I'd wonder aloud Elena would consider this. Maybe. Or maybe she found what she thought she was supposed to want. But that's not our story anymore. She'd be right. Our story was the one we were building together. Complicated and uncertain and requiring daily choice. It was Elena buying her building. Me establishing my consulting practice. Us learning each other's rhythms and flaws and dreams. But that night, the night of the exhibition, we didn't know any of that yet. We just knew that we'd found each other at exactly the right time, when we were both ready to stop keeping our options open and start building something real. To golden hours, Elena said, raising her glass. To the love that Vanessa will never be, I replied. She clinked her glass against mine. No, to the love we choose to become. And that, I realized, was the difference between settling and building, between fear and faith, between keeping your options open and choosing the one option that matters. Outside, Florence glowed in the darkness, ancient and new all at once. Inside, we were just beginning.